So who are you? And thanks for having me here.
I'm Sang Kim, founder and CEO of Ripple6.
Yeah, and what does Ripple6 do?
We provide a white label social media platform. So part of our business is enabling publishers and media companies to incorporate or build new social media sites. But what we've also done that's kind of unique is the platform comes with social marketing tools. So helping publishers monetize their audience in a way that the advertisers are looking for.
Yeah, and so tell me a little bit what it looks like on the page. If I bought Ripple6 and put it on my community site or my blog or my business site, what would it look like?
Sure. I mean, in its most simplest form, you could, let's talk about Facebook. Everybody knows Facebook. So Facebook for moms, Facebook for cooks, etc. And I think that's important on a couple levels. It's not, there's a lot of terms out there, like community, I think of like bulletin boards and stuff, and it's people and it's talking, but it's not very personal. Facebook's a little bit more on the personal, focuses on connection. So our clients are major publishers like Gannett and Meredith Corporation, and we enable them to really take the affinity, the passion that their audience has, and let them talk to each other, because that's what they're looking to do.
So you're aimed at pretty high-end publishers, the people who have hundreds of thousands to millions of participants or viewers. You're not aimed at a small, little, tiny niche, little business, are you?
Actually, we are to a certain extent. I would say for the last couple of years, we focused on...
Because you're pretty expensive to buy your service, right?
Yes.
In the tens of thousands of dollars, right?
Yeah, and probably a little bit more than that for the enterprise solution. But what we've done in the last year is we've created a version of our product that we called R6 On Demand, which has all of the power, most of the power and capability of that, but created a package that can go after kind of the mid and long tail. Yeah. So it's actually about a tenth of the price, and we can actually get it up in about a tenth of the time as well. Yeah. So I think that's great for both the mid and long tail, but also for some of these large publishers, they actually have a lot of satellite sites, and it's a great way to get them up and running in a cost-effective way.
Yeah, I wanted to talk to you though because you're building community sites for really major brands, and brands we all love and know.
Right.
And you can tell me about some of them.
Sure.
But what are you seeing in the world? What are you learning from building these sites for these large brands? What are they expecting, and how can that apply to a smaller business? More of a pizza shop or a bar or something like that.
The web is social. I think there's an expectation that if you go to a site that I'm not just reading your content, I should be able to communicate with the other people. And that's a big part of it, and especially for the publishing industry. It was all about, supplying your content in print, now supplying it online. But if you're skiingmagazine.com, we're all coming to your site because we have a passion for skiing or affinity for skiing. A lot of the value is connecting me to your other readers. Yeah. So I think that's big. What else is happening in the world? Everybody's trying to figure out how to monetize this. Yeah. And I think more to the point is it's not just monetizing. How do you create value for this? Because the advertiser or marketer, well, the publisher has the audience that the advertiser or marketer is looking for. Yeah. So all the potential is there, but the medium advertising in its traditional sense has been a huge barrier because now people are communicating on it. So, but if you really think about it, the fact that whereas in the past, really all you knew about your audience is, well, they're probably skiers if I'm skiing.com. Yeah. Or let me use a better example, more relevant example. Mixing Bowl is a social network that we've built for Meredith Corporation. It's kind of the social version of betterhomesandgardens.com. So, instead of just kind of uniques and page views, and they probably like cooking, when you make it social, all of a sudden people start telling you who they are. They profile themselves, and not just because you ask them to, because it helps them. It's their identity, helps them connect with other people. So now it's not just uniques and page views. It's real people with real interests, ages. They tend to share all that kind of information. And then two, they start talking to each other. Yeah. Wow, there's some real valuable information, not just for you, but potentially for the people who want to advertise there. And then lastly, they start to connect and share information through those connections. So it's kind of funny to me when everybody's like, wow, how do you monetize social media? Everything's disrupted. where all I see is, wow, there's so much more opportunity for you, the publisher, to create so much value to your marketers. And all you have to get past is get past the traditional things you've been selling them. How about if there is, like and I'll show you this in a little while, we run a big social network for moms. It's a collection of 80 different social networks across the country. Benjamin Moore was launching a new kind of organic paint line. Yep. So what we did is we created a community called Green Moms. And we kind of did that intentionally, not like a Benjamin Moore Natura fan page, but something that really just appeals to moms in a broader sense. And then we enabled Benjamin Moore to become a part of that community. And what's really great about that is that the community is thriving and self-sustaining because the conversations aren't just about paint. It could be about compost, or there's an interesting one in there about how this woman makes her own detergent. So the community kind of sustains itself, but then the brand gets to participate, listen, inject their messages on an appropriate level. So that's the kind of, okay, so this is how the world has changed, this is how people behave on the web. How does a marketer fit into there? And that's been a huge success. The second part of this is...
Tell me a little bit about how a brand participates in a forum like that without looking creepy or coming across as being too salesy or marketing.
Yeah, you know what the irony is? And a lot of this was conjecture and design on our part. I mean, it was based on a lot of talking to marketers, publishers, agencies, but we never knew what was going to happen until we launched it. And we definitely went in trying to err a little bit more on the conservative side. Yeah. Don't make it look too salesy, advertising, et cetera. And the interesting thing is that the community wanted the brand in there, because they're not coming in. It's not the Natura blog. It's a community sponsored by Natura, and when they're talking about paint, they want to ask Benjamin Moore the questions, because they're going to be the experts. I think there's value and opinion and experience from community members, but you're coming in as an expert. We launched a similar one for Unilever and Suave, and there was demand. People kept saying, hey, it's kind of odd. We know Unilever's sponsoring this because we made it fully transparent, but they haven't shown up yet. And that's because we were introducing a hairstylist expert from Suave a week later, but now he's a member of their community. Yeah. And what he's not doing is just commercial posts every week. He's engaging in the conversation. He's applying the Suave messages when the context is right, and it just creates a much more fit. So I don't think advertising, there's no inherent conflict between people and the products that they buy. They buy them because they like them, but if you do it in a non-interruptive, relevant way, and then make the scope bigger, then it becomes hugely successful.
Are your communities hooked into the other social networks like Twitter and Facebook and Feed and whatnot?
Yes. So yeah, let me describe that. So what this technology, it's not just a methodology. There's actually real technology built underneath, and brand communities and social insights, which I'll describe, are based on a technology we developed called cloud communities that we've patented. And what cloud communities do enables a brand to create that Green Moms group and actually syndicate the entire community across the web. And that's really important, because if you're a big national brand, a microsite or a micro community sounds great because of the level of engagement, interaction, and learning, but you do things in bulk. So you can't just kind of build one here and then take the time and expense to build one here. It just doesn't work that way. No. I mean, in media, they'll millions of dollars, do the buy, it's over and done with. So kind of understanding these problems, we built cloud communities, which allows a brand to build a community once and actually put it on multiple sites. And it's not content syndication. The community is connected. So you could be in cincy.momslikeme.com, and I could be in Mom Junction, and when we go into that Green Moms community, we're talking to each other. They're fully synchronized.
That's really cool.
Yeah, so that took a kind of a while to make and build. So really, from the brand perspective now, they build one, they scale it across the web, and you could even syndicate. Like, if you didn't have this technology, you would basically be building fragmented communities that would be really expensive to manage and would never get enough critical mass unless they were the big ones. Over here, you could syndicate it to a place where they have 15 people, but they get to stay on their site. But once they enter that community, they're into a community that could actually be larger than the entire site.
Yeah.
So that was a big breakthrough.
Do you ever think you're going to offer your service to smaller businesses who can't afford $20,000 or $30,000 to integrate your technology into their website? You know, like a small individual pizza shop or something like that. Probably this is going to be having a community like that on their page is going to be attractive to a large number of businesses. But
yeah, absolutely.
So 20 grand keeps it for the big guys, you know.
Yeah. So we're going to solve that need for the small business, but we're going to do it a little bit differently because. If a small business builds that social network or website or anything, they've only done a fraction of the job. Because when you build a website in the internet, your next job becomes driving traffic to it.
Yeah.
And they can build it, but they don't have more than tens of thousands of dollars to actually drive media to it. And this is very relevant because as a part of Gannett owns over 100 local newspaper and broadcast solutions that service small businesses. This is a very relevant problem. So the way we're doing it is we're going to leverage a cloud community technology again. So instead of you, local pizza shop owner, building your own social network and then trying to figure out how to get people there, we'll build you that community, but we'll embed it in the local relevant traffic. So if you own a pizza shop in Cincinnati, we'll create that Joe's Pizza group, and out of the box, it'll have your homepage, calendar, media, blog, discussions, reviews, everything. But then we'll put it into Cincinnati.momslikeme.com, the CincinnatiInquirer.com, all the relevant places. So, in essence, for that local business, they're more like Procter and Gamble Pure, not like Better Homes and Gardens, right? Because they're the marketer in this case. So that marketing solution that works for a $100 billion company can actually work for your local business. Yeah.
One of the things when I talk to people who run major brands or even small pizza shops, they're freaked out about all the problems that you have with communities. Keeping jerks off, keeping spam off, keeping all sorts of stuff all sorts of stuff that people don't want to see associated with brands. What kind of tools do you give the moderators so that they can keep the system clean?
Yeah, I think there's two types of, if you want to call it trash, opposite of clean. One is just offensive or inappropriate things, and we provide report abuse type tools that can be configurable, and the community tends to self-police. If you make the community feel like it's theirs, they tend to police it. So that's a pretty easy thing to do. The second part of it, I think the question is, well, what if they don't talk nicely about my brand? What if they say things I don't want to say? And really, I think the great thing is, I think 5 years ago, massive concern when blogging kind of just started taking off. But today, at Procter & Gamble, the CEO laughingly says, the consumer's in control. So they actually get that. And more importantly, they get that somebody wants to say something not so positive about your brand. There's plenty of places to do it on the internet. Why not do it in a forum where you could at least respond? And when people respond, or you respond in an honest way, they respect that more. I think everybody knows that no brand is going to have 100% satisfaction across the board with every human being. So as long as you can get engaged in that conversation, they find value in that. So it's been great, as we don't typically fight that battle today. Yeah.
What attributes do you find a great community has, and what advice would you give to a community manager who's building a new community, not necessarily one that already exists? A lot of brands are building new communities because they haven't had communities in the past.
Right.
And a lot of companies don't understand how to bootstrap community. Do you see some things that best practices or things that some brands do really well when they build their communities?
Right. So I guess a couple of points. One is if you're a marketer, you sell products, I wouldn't necessarily recommend trying to build a community around your product. It's just not that big of a person's life. You should go to where a relevant community is and have a presence there.
So if you're a ski manufacturer, don't try to build Head's ski
you're just
join into a skiing community already.
Exactly, because a person probably interacts with a few thousand products a day, and you don't have enough time to belong to all those social networks. But if you're a ski manufacturer, go to the right one and then participate there. But in general, let's say you're trying to build and there are exceptions, you know, like I think Pampers has a massive community. It's high, it's a big part of your life, but for 95+%, the other method's probably better. But let's say you're building a community. I think a couple of things. One is design your system so that the community can shape your community. So what's the opposite of that? I think what's been done in the past, I'm going to build a community for, you know, moms, and I think there's 15 topics that are interested in, so I throw up some bulletin boards and I create these 15 topics and you go talk there. Another way to do it is create a flexible system where they can create the topics of interest and just naturally and organically promote. We ran our own for a while, just so that we knew what we were selling. We did that for about 1.5 years. It was a site called Mom Junction. And this is about, you know, 3 years ago. And, you know, we probably made every mistake in the book and learned and tweaked based on that. But that we did right. We started off, we seeded it with about 12 communities, 12 micro communities in there. I think within a month there was like 300. So somebody would come in and say, hey, there's no community for military families. Let me create one. There's no community for moms of kids with autism. Let me create one. And then help them find the tools, help them find each other and bring them in. So then now they really get engagement. The second part, I would say best practices, how do you scale that? Yeah. So I think the way to scale that is naturally in any community there are people who are passionate about certain things. And if you did the first part, they're the ones that created that group. So engage them, reward them, not necessarily monetarily, but if you do that,
do you have a point system or a karma system or anything?
Yeah,
like that?
You know, it varies. It varies by site and industry, but you know, often a best practice could be give them a special badge, give them certain rights on the site, profile them on the homepage more. You know, this is the community leader for, you know, the Guiding Light soap opera, and she knows this character inside out. So those types of things. And then you can often couple that with some incentives that don't cost too much. Like in that example, maybe of all the ambassadors on the site, somebody gets to have a lunch with their favorite character or something like that. But you don't necessarily have to pay them to do that. As a matter of fact, the community dynamics would probably be better if you didn't. So give them some special attention, some special recognition, special capabilities on the sites, and some rewards now and then.
Yeah. Tell me about the infrastructure underneath the site, because a lot of times we don't talk about that, but it's always interesting. How did you build the technology? Where is it hosted?
It's hosted at Rackspace.
Thank you very much.
You know, really, I think for our business, we're it's an ASP model, so we host it and manage it for you. So you know, when you build these things, you have to figure out how to scale them. So we've got a great CTO, Malcolm Smith, who's really just constantly working on, you know, how do we scale these systems? But you know, two of the unique things in our system are really based on Ripple. So hence the name of the company. Mm-hmm. And Ripple was all about how do you enable conversations to move across networks without becoming fragmented. So send to a friend fragments a conversation, right? You branch it over here and there's a few people replying. You branch it over here and that can create a big, let's say problem, but lost opportunity. What Ripple technology does is it allows conversations to be spread, but they all stay connected.
Interesting.
Yeah, so that was our first patent, and that's what we built the company on. And not only is that great because if you think about word of mouth, let's say my post was a question and it got rippled by a lot of people. If it was fragmented all over the place, first of all, I probably would have a hard time tracking it, would never see it, and then there would be no discussion going cross branches. With Ripple, it all stays a single conversation.
Interesting.
So
does it stay that way even if it goes outside of Ripple? And in terms of, like, if you go to friend feed, that could start a whole nother, or Facebook now, people are starting conversations on Facebook, if Twitter.
Yeah, we're working on that. If it goes outside, it doesn't. Our analytics can track it, but it's not it doesn't in real time synchronize across all the sites. Okay. But our network is actually fairly extensive and growing quite a bit. But between Ripple and cloud communities, you know, scaling was a little extra challenging because we always had to maintain that integrity. You can imagine trying to build new capabilities and still keep that. So that keeps some really smart people at our company pretty busy.
Thank you so much.
Yes.
And where do, just to finish off, where do I learn more?
Ripple6.com. Ripple and the number 6.
Very cool. Thank you so much.
Thank you.